right. I am happy to be joined with the Chief Operating Officer of Body and Mind, Trip Hoffman. How are you, sir?
I am well, Shad. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I know last time I got a chance to speak with the president, Mr. Michael Mills, back in October, but lots obviously changed within the industry. We continue to have more and more companies in the U.S. cannabis landscape going on. But I guess what was your reaction? I know it's a little bit not certain with what's going on in the Oval Office, but needless to say, since what's happened on November 3rd, this industry has really taken off even that much more.
Yeah, there's been a lot of positive tailwinds now, so to speak. Now, I think that the general outlook going forward, though, with the change in the administration in the U.S., is that the typical headwinds that existed before have been removed or will likely be removed, given the general forecast or consensus of what this administration stands for. So I think it remains yet to be seen. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. However, we expect that there's going to be positive momentum towards whether it's the MORE Act, the Safe Banking Act, and that should really open up the doors for easier capital to come in and help us grow even faster than we've been growing so far.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you plan to capitalize? What's going to get obviously shareholders excited? You're currently, as we said before, positioned in Nevada, California, Arkansas, and Ohio, and potentially, obviously, entering into jurisdictions with limited licenses, which is a great business model, especially in the U.S. cannabis landscape, where you don't have to be these big multi-state operators. But how do you plan to capitalize? I assume it's just business as usual for you.
Yeah, business as usual for us is pretty fast paced. We're always looking to grow in the right places at the right time. And we've learned some things in the last year that we do absolutely want to secure the whole vertical supply chain in all of our locations. So we're working on making that happen everywhere we look. We're also looking around the country, whether it's the existing footprint locations like California or new footprint locations, and seeing opportunities where the valuations of companies to get to take over, to buy, or to get involved are actually coming down to reasonable valuations, and that's a healthy thing. So we're looking to expand in the right locations with the right opportunities.
I wanted to talk to you before we get into business fundamentals, is your story. And I know, I find this truly fascinating. Ran a lot of hedge funds, lived in New York, lived in Chicago, and then obviously wanted to get into the cannabis space. And you applied for a trimmer's position on Craigslist. It was paying $10 an hour. So you walked away from it all, got into the industry, which is truly fascinating when you think about the people that you meet within this industry, because as much as the plan is old, it's very much from a business perspective, a brand new industry. So tell me about that, and tell me more. This is truly fascinating when I heard about this.
Yeah, it's a nice, colorful experience I've had to get involved. Yeah, I started off, came out of finance and was watching what was taking place in the cannabis space, and decided that I wanted to become involved. And I put together an idea to build a cultivation and I tried to raise some capital for that. And I was just struggling with the results because I didn't have any credibility in the industry. And so after about 6 months of spinning my wheels on that front, I decided to get the experience that I needed. And I just answered a Craigslist ad for a $10 per hour trimming job. And they hired me, and I went in and sat down and worked at the table with a bunch of 25-year-olds and learned the industry from the ground up. I took my skill set and I sat down. I would go home at night and weekends and started writing software to track the systems and the plants and the harvests and all these yields and results. I ended up writing some software to manage the operation, and eventually they gave me some control and some authority to take over things. But I've had the experience from the ground up, Shad. I'm thankful for that. I've done everything myself.
That's incredible.
I know what it takes.
What do you think you learned, I guess, from working with the 25-year-olds? I'm sure that was quite the experience, and good for you for obviously, the great sense of humility and discipline, but I'm sure it was a good learning curve for you.
It was, from especially in my current role as the chief operations officer.
Right.
I learned a lot about how to manage individuals in this industry, and it's a significantly different process than working with 30-year-old executives in the financial services space, for example. And I think I've done pretty well. We built very sticky teams. We've got teams built upon respect and expectations and consequences, and yet we're able to work with the individuals that are familiar and that are drawn into this industry.
So I want to talk about business fundamentals, as I said, in the 4 states, and I'm sure you're looking to expand with, as you said, a lot of capital that's going to be raised within this industry come next year. But let's focus first off on Nevada. And one of the things that really grabbed my interest is that you're seeing tourism down 60 to 70% year over year, but yet, state revenues for cannabis is up as much as 30%. So what does that mean for your business model going forward? And how much of an opportunity does the state of Nevada present for Body and Mind?
Yeah, we were really surprised when tourism went to zero during the COVID situation. Once the industry was able to reopen with delivery and some curbside and such, and then eventually with limited distancing inside store shopping, the industry came back full bore, almost back to 100% very quickly in terms of total sales. And then tourism came back a little bit. So we learned that tourism was a much smaller component of our sales here in Nevada than we expected. And now, even with the little bit of 30% or so of tourism that's back, our sales are up 30% year over year in the state. So we've got a very healthy local market, much healthier than we expected. And I think that's kind of seen across the country too. Everyone's local market is strong in the COVID scenario. But our industry, our tourism part of our industry, is really kicking us, giving us a nice boost as well. So we're trying to expand and capitalize on this by expanding our capacity in Nevada. There's been some dislocations for some of our competitors in terms of their capacity, so we're taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
But we see Nevada as a very strong market for the next couple of years.
Your brand obviously is well regarded amongst consumers. Like in the state of Arizona, or excuse me, Arkansas, you received awards, best product available within the state, and voted by a number of people, obviously, within the state. So as a chief operating officer, I know there's a lot of people out there that's going to say our product's the best, but, explain to me, because the feedback, obviously, from the people is backing it up. If I'm in front of a group of people that consume your product, what do you think they say and why?
Yeah, that's it's a nice trophy to mention. In Arkansas, we were actually voted the favorite dispensary in the state of Arkansas, which we're very proud of. And when it comes to using the word best on anything, I want to be very hesitant because I know that everything is subjective when people assess things. But I know it does say that we have very, very good quality product. And I think if we're in front of anyone on any part of our whole product offering, from our flower all the way through our edibles and concentrates and oils, we focus on quality. We want to produce a higher than average quality product with an average price point. And that's what we try to do everywhere. And I think that if you have, a consumer that leaves your store or buys your product and they feel better after they have that product than they felt before, then you've succeeded.
Well, obviously you're doing something right. And one of the things I also wanted to talk about too is like, the most important thing of the business, American business landscape model is the ability to flourish in smaller markets, as I said earlier. Provide us an update as to what's going on in the state of California. And, you hear, mixed emotions, obviously, towards the state of California, how cannabis is run. Is it difficult to turn a profit? At the same time, too, combating against, obviously, the black market. But why did it make sense to go into the San Diego region with the amount of limited license? And how are you benefiting from that strategic move?
We stepped into California looking from the 50,000-foot view that, as everyone knows, it's the giant in our country. It's going to be whatever 25 to 30% of the all cannabis sales at some point throughout the entire nation. And so it's an important market to understand and to figure out. It also is a location where if you want to build a brand, you have to have a brand that survives in California and New York and these big city sort of locations. If you don't, then you're going to have a less likelihood of your brand becoming a nationwide brand. So
Right.
There's a lot of reasons to be attracted to California. California is also, one of the most difficult places to do business for the obvious reasons you mentioned. There's the big black market there.
Yep.
That's a head-to-head competition that's not paying taxes. And then there's the taxes. The taxes are very arduous. They're overbearing everywhere, and they're different. They're difficult to figure out. There's stacked taxes, they're layered taxes. And we feel like we've been there for a couple of years now, a year and a half or so, and we've figured this stuff out. And now it's our time to make hay. We've paid our dues. We're watching. We've also seen that the multiples on operations that are coming up and available are now in the realistic zone. So we're excited about expanding in California.
Well, one of the things I see from a pure business operations is that you're currently cash flow neutral. One important thing to notice and understand is the difference between consolidated versus managed revenue. And when I look at your earnings reports, 75% of your revenue was managed revenue, yet you only get to report 25% of your consolidated revenue on your 10Q basically within the last quarter. So when we see a difference in that moving forward, that's a huge and very important untold part of your story.
It really is, Chad. When we start operations or take over operations, we're not allowed to consolidate the revenue and the financials until we actually hold title to the license.
Really?
And the transfer of these licenses can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years.
Okay.
And so during that period, even when we're in control and we're operating the operations and also have a definitive agreement in place to take over those operations, we can only call those revenues managed revenues. We can't consolidate them in our 10Q. And the way we've been sitting here up till now is that over 75% of our total revenues are not consolidated. They're just managed revenues. And so when you look at our 10Q, the revenue you see there is roughly equal to 25% of our total revenue. Now that's changing. We've been able to take title of our Ohio asset and our Long Beach asset here around September 1st. So in
That's
our
your
first
dispensaries?
there are 2 dispensaries, correct?
Okay.
And so in the quarter that includes that date, that'll be the beginning of when we can consolidate those revenues and those financials. So we're looking at a nice hockey stick of consolidated financials here in the next 2 quarters when we report.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you want to shift my attention to is obviously with the new administration, at least we don't know where that sits right now, but a lot of things obviously have changed over the past month, but it's an exciting time for the industry. We look at a number of things like the 280E tax code. I've asked this with a number of different CEOs from different companies as well. But obviously, this is going to help the industry tremendously in the event it does get passed, obviously, in the new year. But what can, I guess, shareholders expect come day one in the event that obviously you can start writing off expenses? And most importantly, your corporate tax rate is obviously slashed potentially in half.
Yeah, if there's a change in our tax code, which it'll happen someday, I believe, it's hard to know when, it's going to make a huge difference to our industry. I think, as difficult as it is to survive just because of the overbearing, regulatory burden that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, when you put in place the effective tax rate that can be as high as 90% of your net revenues because of the inability to write off standard overhead expenses like rent and labor.
Yeah.
Those are challenges that make it almost impossible to succeed for a lot of businesses. So having that potential to have that burden taken away is a real boon towards, everything from the social equity participation, which makes it easier for everyone to get involved and survive because you have to make a profit to survive. And so we look forward to that potential change that we do believe is going to take place with the new administration.
Last thing I will leave you with is, it's an understatement. The cannabis industry has been on a roller coaster ride, especially over the last 18 months. Yet what I've noticed really online and a lot of the feedback is that you have very loyal shareholders that have been kind of through this and they've stuck with you for, a variety of different reasons. So if you're speaking with them or speaking to potential new investors that are interested within your company, why Body and Mind, and what is the potential you think over the next 12 to 24 months for your company?
I think the way we like to put our company out there is that we are strong operators and very poor promoters. We focused on building our company with sound fundamentals and a sound foundation. We've always executed on our plan. When we raised our last raise in early 19, we had a plan to build a couple of dispensaries and to finish a couple of projects, and we did that. And now all that revenue is coming online. So I think that one thing that sets us apart is what we touched on earlier. We're debt-free and we're good operators with a good future plan. I think that's what you want to look at if you are investing for the long term.
Yeah. Well, Trip, well said. I appreciate you taking the time this Thanksgiving weekend to sit down with us. I hope you're not a Cowboys fan after yesterday's performance, but needless to say, we really appreciate obviously you taking the time with us, and excited for you and the team, and good times for the U.S. cannabis landscape for sure right now.
Well, thanks for having me, Chad. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Trip, keep in touch.